Good afternoon, YouTube. This is Chuck, and it's Wednesday, February 26th, 2025, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And as you can see, I'm coming to you from over here at the park. And I used to come over here every morning and walk old Flapjack, and since he's left us, I don't get over here as often as I probably should. I probably should still come over here and walk every day. It'd be good for me, but I don't do it. But I got a little video for you here today, and a little bit different than some of the stuff that I've been bringing you lately. And this one's going to be under what I call my Chasin Payson series. And what it is, it's a little bit about our town. And I'm calling it 5 pros and 5 cons to living here. Now, I moved here in 1970, so I've been here almost 55 years. And I've worked out of town a little bit, but basically I've had a house here the whole time. And I've seen the town grow as years have gone by, and so I think that probably makes me qualified to talk about pros and cons of living here. And I love it here, don't get me wrong, but it has its good points and its bad points. Now I've got a list of notes down here on my leg, so if I look down a little bit once in a while, I'm just trying to keep my notes straight. So I'm going to start off with the 5 pros of living here, and the number one is got to be the weather and the climate. This place is about as close to perfect as you could possibly ask for. We get 4 seasons, but none of them are real severe. We get a couple months when it's cold in the winter. We get a couple months when it's hot in the summer. But most of the time, the temperature is just real temperate and just absolutely beautiful. And we get some rain, we get some snow, but most of the time it's pretty nice. Now, even today, and this is the end of February, and it's in the low 70s here, and it's sunny and clear, and we've had a few days of record warm temperatures, and that's getting ready to end, and it's going to get back to more seasonal temperatures, and by Monday, they're forecasting a high of 48. So that's going to be a whole lot different than the low 70s, but that's what you do when you live in the mountains. And we're about 5,000 feet here. So obviously, number one has got to be the climate and the weather. That's absolutely great. Second thing I want to say on my pros list is the clean air. Now, we're not really all that far from the Metro Phoenix area, but we got 2 big mountain ranges between here and there. And that tends to funnel all the air pollution from the metro area away from us. And being a little bit higher, we're above a lot of it anyway. And so the air here sometimes is just absolutely pristine. It's beautiful. Clear, nice. After a rainstorm, it's absolutely wonderful. Now, I've been on a couple of trips lately, and we actually were down in the lower desert area. And the last trip, we went to Quartzsite, and before that, we were down in Florence and then down by Casa Grande. And one of the things we noticed down there, it's a lot of farming down there. And this time of year, there's a lot of fallow fields, and of course the tractors are running, and every one of them is putting up a huge cloud of dust, and there was that pall of dust just hanging in the air constantly. And we didn't notice it that much when we actually lived down there, but now that we're down there visiting, I looked at that and I thought, man, I'd never want to live down here for that. It just hung in the air. You could see it in the morning, you could see it in the evening, and I'm sure after a nice rainstorm it probably cleans the air pretty good, but to me, that was objectionable, and to know that the whole city's like that just told me maybe I would never want to live down in the desert. So the clean air would be the second part of that weather up here, just absolutely gorgeous. The second thing that I consider a pro of living here is the convenience of everything. We are a small town, so nothing's very far away. And we have just about everything you could possibly need to meet your everyday needs. We have a super Walmart. We have 2 major chain grocery stores. For guys, we have a Home Depot. We have an Ace Hardware. We have a Tractor Supply. We even have a Harbor Freight. Just about everything you could possibly need as a guy, we've got. There's a pretty good smattering of restaurants, and no gourmet food particularly, but decent stuff so if you want to eat out, you can do that. And everything's just close. You don't have to drive a long distance for it. And that I consider that a pro as well. A lot of people drive either golf carts or side-by-sides as a second vehicle just to run around town because the weather's so nice most of the time. And that's pretty cool to be able to do that. Well, the third thing I call it, and this is both on the pro list and the con list, and we'll get to the con list later, but that's what I call proximity to the big city. Well, Phoenix is the 5th largest city in the country, and when you add in all the suburbs, there's 4.5 million people or so down there, which means that you've got every kind of service you could possibly imagine down there. And it's just a little over a mile or a little over an hour away on a 4-lane divided highway. And it's a beautiful award-winning drive. And so if you need to go down there, and we jokingly call it the call of the mall, well, everything down there, and it's only a little over an hour to get there. And so the convenience is a big factor. It's also a bad thing, and I'll get to that in a little bit. The fourth thing is that our community is totally surrounded by federal land, national forest land. And we're boxed in, which means it's excellent for recreational opportunities. It's excellent to know that your town can never grow too big because of that. Let me adjust my glasses here a little bit. And so being boxed in by federal land is both a good thing and a bad thing. And once more, I'll talk about the bad parts of that here in a minute. But you can be out in the national forest land in 10 minutes in any direction. And so it's wonderful if you like to hike, or you like to mountain bike, or you like to drive a Jeep or a dirt bike, or hunt or fish or whatever you like to do. It's anywhere within about 10 minutes. And that's absolutely wonderful. The fifth thing, is the services here. Now our city is not the best, but certainly not the worst. And we have pretty good municipal services here. They've got a pretty good, as you can say, we got really nice parks. This one greens up real nice in the summertime, but of course it's February now, so it's kind of brown. But we have 2 major parks with another one under construction. And we have good, the Parks Department's great, the water system's great, the emergency services, police and fire are great. We have street department that does a pretty good job, but we've got a lot of streets, and there's never enough money to make everything the way you really want to, but they do as good a job as they can. So all the major municipal services, we have a nice library, and all the major municipal services are there, and they are pretty darn good. Medical care also. We have a small hospital here, but it's part of a large chain hospital that's got every kind of specialty that you can imagine. And if something goes haywire, we have paramedic level engine companies that'll be at your house in 4 minutes or so. And we have 2 medical helicopters here that can take you to any specialty hospital in the Phoenix area in about 30 minutes. So the medical care is outstanding. They do a lot of telehealth here. So even the little hospital locally, they can get you on the phone with a specialist, and maybe you don't have to go down there. A lot of the specialists come up here 1 or 2 days a week. So a lot of times you can see your specialist without having to drive down there. And that's really exceptional. One of the other things, it ties back into the municipal services that this town has, and that we're one of the few Arizona towns that have a guaranteed 100-year water supply. Water is a huge thing. Arizona is growing very fast, and every community out there is struggling to figure out where they're going to find enough water for their municipal needs over the coming years. We started a project years ago where we tapped into a reservoir up on top of the Mogollon Rim and piped the water down here. And we have enough water guaranteed for our total build out, which is estimated to be around 40,000 people. We have about 17 now. So we can double our population, and we still have plenty of water for that. And we're one of the only communities in Arizona that can say that. And that's a huge thing, and it's going to be even bigger in the coming years. So that's my 5 pros. Let's talk about the 5 cons. Well, the number one thing has got to be that we have been discovered. We have people moving here from all over the place. A lot of them from California. And you'll hear a lot of people like to hate on Californians, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But basically what's happened is all the transplants And the fact that we're boxed in by federal land means that land is scarce here, and housing has gotten ridiculously expensive. The price of housing has gone through the roof, easily to the point where I've lived in my house almost 50 years and I would not qualify with my retirement income to buy my own house. If I were to sell my house, I could never afford to buy anything else here. And that's what that means is that there's a lot of the working people. Workforce housing is an absolute crisis. The people working the service jobs, the restaurants and the utility workers and the firefighters and the teachers and the police officers and the people that work at the hospital, they can't afford a house to live here. And that's a real crisis, and that's probably our number one con to living here. And the way I like to describe it is you have people, and we'll pick on Californians for a minute. We've got people that lived in Southern California. They bought a house for $150,000 years ago. And when they decided to retire and move away, and you can't blame them for wanting to move away from Southern California, but they sold their house for $1 million plus. They moved over here and they bought a house for $400,000. It's worth half that. And they put the rest of the money that they got in the bank or in a money market account, and they're just happy as can be. But the working people can't do that. They don't have that luxury. And that's a real problem here. Number 2 on my cons list, oh, and by the way, we're not the only community in the West that's experiencing that. Virtually every desirable place to live in the entire West is experiencing that very same thing. You see it in Colorado, you see it in Idaho, you see it in all the other states as well. So anyway, number 2 is traffic. Now we mentioned that we're in close proximity to the Metro Phoenix area, but what that also means is that we are the closest high mountain recreation area to Metro Phoenix. And that means that on the weekends, the traffic here is just absolutely crazy. We're basically a one-road town, and there's only 3 ways out of here. You can go south, you can go north, you can go east on major state highways. But it also means that just everybody coming through town has to go through one major intersection. On the summer weekends, especially the busy ones like Labor Day or 4th of July or Memorial Day, the traffic coming into town on a Friday afternoon will be backed up several miles, bumper to bumper, coming into town from the south. And on the same token, on Sunday, all the people are going home, and the traffic will be backed up from the north and from the east for miles, bumper to bumper, just to get through this bottleneck that is our little town. You know, there's been some discussion over the years about building a bypass, but it's probably not going to happen in my lifetime, and the cost of doing that is going to be hundreds of millions of dollars. So traffic has got to be the number 2 con. Most of us that live here, we try to get our shopping done beforehand. We learn how to navigate through the back streets. And we try to, on the big weekends, we try to just hide and not go anywhere. So traffic is a huge con to living here. The third one is one I also listed as a pro, and that's proximity to the big city. And that relates right directly back to what I was just saying. We actually have people that live here and commute every day down to, because they don't want to live in the big city. They don't want to live in the desert where it's hot in the summer. And but they work down there and they drive back and forth. And once again, we have a good road going back and forth, but the proximity to the city means that we have a lot of the city problems end up here. And so proximity to the city is both a good thing and a bad thing. The number 4 is also a shared thing with my pros list, and that is that we're boxed in by national forest land. And what that means is that we can never draw any large industry. We can never draw any large employers. We won't even draw any kind of large housing developments because there's just simply not enough land, and the land is extremely expensive. So once again, that's both a pro and a con. And the fact that we're surrounded by federal land and all the recreational opportunities that allows, it also means that 97% of the land within our county is either federal, state, or tribal. There's only 3% of the land in the county that actually is taxable. So that figures out in our property taxes. We don't have real high tax, but what it means is that our county is struggling to provide the services that it really should have. And so that's like I say, that's both a pro and a con to living in a place like this. The number fifth con is something that I guess a little controversial, and I wasn't quite sure what to label that, but I'm going to call it factions. And basically, there's a number of different factions of people that live here, and they don't always get along as good as they probably should. And we have the old timers versus the newcomers, and we have the young progressives versus the retirees, and we have a large retirement population, and some of them don't want to see anything change, and they're concerned about debt. And a lot of them, another faction's the haves versus the have-nots, and there's a whole lot of us that are have-nots. And and when you're struggling to try to pay your bills on a day-to-day basis on your limited retirement income, it's kind of hard to think of some big plan to do something big that's going to make the town a much better place to live 30 years down the road. So the haves versus the have-nots, and the retirees versus the young people. They want to see better schools. They want to see better parks. They want to see a lot of better things, but the town just simply can't afford that. And we just had an election here, and the initial city council was made up of some young progressive folks, a lot of them in the real estate community, and they had some big plans for putting some stuff in here to really put the town on the map. Well, they ended up getting voted out of office by a group I refer to as the angry old men, and we have a lot of them, and we have angry old women too. And I'm a retiree myself on a fixed income, and I understand both sides of that. But anyway, the angry old men voted out the young progressives, and their whole bond issue program and everything that they were planning on doing is probably not ever going to happen, at least not for the next until the next election comes along. And to show you how close that is, as our longtime vice mayor, a lady that I've known for good grief 40 years, she lost her seat by one vote. So that tells you a couple things. It tells you how divided the community is in that regard, and it also tells you that democracy works. She lost by one vote. Great gal. Like I say, I've known her for a long time. But also in that, of course, we have the conservatives versus the not-so-conservatives, and this place is definitely Trump country, and a lot of those angry old men are MAGA types, and so we have those too. But that's another thing that is that there's a lot of people that moved here to escape something, whether they're young, whether they're old. They may have moved here to escape their problems. And when you're your problem and you move somewhere, your problem comes with you. And because of that, we have our share, maybe more than our share, of things like alcohol abuse and substance abuse, and people that have checkered pasts and drugs. We have at least our share of that, if not even a little bit more. And so domestic violence is an issue. As I said, poverty is an issue. People have moved here from somewhere, and then they immediately start taking, well, back home we did this and back home we did that, and they try to change this place from what it is to what the place was that they came from, and they immediately will get crossways with some of the people that don't want this place to be like our neighbor to the west. And so those factions are there too. So factions or politics or whatever you want to name it has got to be part of the equation as well. And there's sometimes there's a lot of good people here, but there's a lot of people that can be not so pleasant at times as well. So that's what I call my 5 pros and my 5 cons of living here. And when I first retired from the fire department here, that was 27 years ago, if you can believe that already. And I left on a big RV trip, and I was going to go see the world, and I had a 40-foot fifth wheel, and my wife and I traveled all over the country, and we were looking for a place maybe to relocate. And after being out on the road for 7 months and 32 states and put 16,000 miles on my truck, we came to the conclusion that we couldn't find any place that we liked any better than right here. And so we came back, and my house was paid for, and I even remortgaged my house so I could add on to it and remodel it. And I'm still living in the same house, and I'll probably live in that same house until they carry me out the door. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little snapshot. I tried to be pretty objective and portray both sides. And once more, it's a gorgeous day here. And so let me tell you, as I always do, take care of each other and love each other and be thankful for what you got, because there's a whole lot of people that don't have what you do, and there's people in the war zones that don't know where they're going to wake up in the morning or know where their house is going to get hit by a missile overnight. And there's a lot of people lost loved ones. And fortunately, we're, at least in this part of the country anyway, we're pretty stable, and we have a lot to be thankful for. So show gratitude. Give you one more look at this lake. Over across the way, there's the museum, and of course, you know I work as a docent over there. Beautiful day here. So until I talk to you again, let me just tell you, peace out.